On March 23, 2022, the developers of a blockchain gaming platform called Axie Infinity noticed something wrong. $625 million had disappeared. Not hacked in the traditional sense, no servers breached, no ransomware, no one breaking down a door. The money was simply gone. Moved out of the Ronin network, the blockchain bridge that processed transactions for Axie Infinity, in 2 transfers that took less than a week to complete. By the time the developers realized what had happened, the funds had already begun moving through a chain of wallets so complex that tracking them felt like watching smoke dissolve in open water. It took the FBI 6 days to identify who did it: North Korea. Specifically, a unit of North Korea's military cyber command known as the Lazarus Group, the same state-sponsored hacking organization that had breached Sony Pictures in 2014, stolen $81 million from the Bangladesh Central Bank in 2016, and deployed the WannaCry ransomware that shut down the UK's National Health Service in 2017. And the Ronin hack was not their biggest score. It was not even close. Between 2017 and 2024, the Lazarus Group stole an estimated $3 to $4 billion in cryptocurrency. The United Nations concluded that these funds account for roughly 40% of North Korea's entire weapons of mass destruction program, not supplemental income, not a side operation, the primary funding mechanism for a nuclear weapons state that has been cut off from every legitimate financial system on Earth. This is not a cybercrime story. This is a story about how a sanctioned regime replaced one shadow financial system with a better one, and how the tools designed to stop them have so far failed entirely. To understand why North Korea turned to cryptocurrency, you have to understand what happened to their previous operation. For 25 years, North Korea's primary hard currency operation was the Superdollar program, state-produced counterfeit $100 bills, so perfect that the US Secret Service gave them a name. By 2013, the United States had redesigned the $100 bill with a 3D security ribbon that no country has ever successfully replicated. The Superdollar program, which had generated an estimated $50 million per year in usable funds, began winding down. Bureau 39, the Kim family's personal hard currency unit, needed a replacement, and in 2017 they found one. Bitcoin had just crossed $10,000 for the first time. Ethereum was establishing itself as the infrastructure layer for a new decentralized financial system. Hundreds of cryptocurrency exchanges were launching with minimal security, minimal compliance, and essentially no regulatory oversight. For an organization that had spent decades moving money through diplomatic pouches, shell companies, and falsified bank transfers, cryptocurrency looked like an entirely new frontier, one with no borders, no correspondent banks, and no government with jurisdiction over the ledger. The Lazarus Group was not new. Bureau 121, North Korea's cyber warfare division, had been building its hacking capabilities since the 1990s. By 2017, it employed an estimated 6,000 operatives, trained in mathematics and computer science at elite North Korean universities, stationed not in Pyongyang but in China, Russia, Belarus, and Southeast Asia, where they had reliable internet access and could operate without attracting attention. North Korea selects its cyber operatives young. Children who show exceptional aptitude in mathematics are identified in primary school and funneled into specialized academies. The best are sent to universities in China, Coincheck University of Technology, the Korea Computer Center, where they study alongside foreign students and gain access to the global internet. By the time a Bureau 121 operative is deployed, they have spent 15 years being trained by the state for a single purpose: stealing money. Before cryptocurrency, the Lazarus Group's financial crimes were already staggering. In 2016, they breached the Bangladesh Central Bank's SWIFT account and attempted to steal $1 billion by sending fraudulent transfer requests to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. $81 million was transferred before a spelling error in one of the transfer requests, foundation instead of foundation, caused a correspondent bank to flag the transaction. 5 transfers totaling $951 million were blocked. The $81 million that moved reached accounts in the Philippines and was laundered through Manila's casino industry within 48 hours, never recovered. Then in 2017 they launched WannaCry, a ransomware attack that encrypted the files of over 200,000 computers across 150 countries, demanding Bitcoin ransoms to restore access. The UK's National Health Service was paralyzed. Nissan manufacturing plants shut down. FedEx's international operations were disrupted. The total estimated damage was $4 billion. The Bitcoin ransoms collected were negligible. WannaCry was not primarily a revenue operation. It was a demonstration, a signal to every intelligence agency in the world that Bureau 121 had the capability to shut down critical infrastructure on demand. The methodology the Lazarus Group developed for cryptocurrency theft is worth understanding in detail, because it reveals something important about how they think. They do not typically try to break encryption. They do not look for flaws in the underlying blockchain. They target the humans. Read Operation Dream Job is the name security researchers gave to one of their most effective techniques. Lazarus operatives create fake LinkedIn profiles, convincing senior recruiters at major financial institutions and technology firms. They approach cryptocurrency engineers and developers with job offers, high salaries, prestigious companies, remote work arrangements. They send PDF documents, job descriptions, compensation packages, interview schedules that contain embedded malware. Once the malware is installed on an engineer's machine, the Lazarus Group has time. They move slowly, mapping internal systems, identifying where the private keys are stored, understanding how the authorization processes work. When they are ready, they move everything at once. Wizardido Ronin hack worked exactly this way. A single engineer at Sky Mavis, the company behind Axie Infinity, opened a PDF job offer. The malware that followed gave Lazarus operatives access to the validator nodes that controlled the Ronin bridge. They waited. They studied the system. Then, over 2 transactions on March 23, they drained $625 million and disappeared. The scale of what the Lazarus Group has taken is difficult to process all at once, so let me lay it out clearly. 2018. Coincheck, a Japanese exchange, $534 million. 2020. KuCoin, $275 million. 2022. Ronin Network, $625 million. 2022. Harmony Horizon Bridge, $100 million. 2023. Euler Finance, $197 million. 2024. Bybit, $1.5 billion. The Bybit hack deserves particular attention. In February 2024, Lazarus operatives compromised a third-party software interface used by Bybit, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. They manipulated a routine transaction approval screen so that Bybit's own signatories unknowingly authorized the transfer of $1.5 billion in Ethereum to Lazarus-controlled wallets. It surpassed the Ronin hack as the largest cryptocurrency theft in history. The entire operation, from initial compromise to completed theft, took less than an hour. Stealing the money is only half the problem. The other half is turning it into something usable. Cryptocurrency transactions are pseudonymous, not anonymous. Every transfer is permanently recorded on a public blockchain. Chain analysis firms like Chainalysis and Elliptic can track the movement of stolen funds in real time, watching as they move from wallet to wallet. The problem is that watching is not the same as stopping. The Lazarus Group's laundering methodology is layered and patient. First, they use cryptocurrency mixers, services that pull funds from multiple sources and return equivalent amounts, breaking the transaction chain. The most prominent was Tornado Cash, a decentralized smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain that processed hundreds of millions of dollars in North Korean funds. In August 2022, the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control did something unprecedented. They sanctioned a smart contract. Not a company, not a person, the code itself. Tornado Cash was added to the OFAC sanctions list, making it illegal for any US person to interact with it. One of its developers, Roman Storm, was arrested in the United States in 2023 and charged with money laundering conspiracy. But here is the problem with sanctioning code. The code kept running. Tornado Cash is decentralized. No company owns it, no server hosts it, no single entity controls it. The smart contract exists on the Ethereum blockchain, which is maintained by thousands of independent nodes worldwide. Sanctioning it made it illegal for Americans to use. It did not make it stop working. Within weeks, Lazarus operatives were routing funds through it again. After mixers, the Lazarus Group converts cryptocurrency into fiat currency through over-the-counter trading desks, primarily operating out of China, that exchange crypto for cash with minimal documentation. The cash enters the Chinese financial system and eventually finds its way back to Pyongyang through channels that intelligence agencies have traced but cannot legally intercept. The honest accounting of what the international community has recovered is sobering. Of the $625 million stolen in the Ronin hack, the US Department of Justice seized approximately $30 million, less than 5%. Of the $1.5 billion stolen from Bybit, blockchain analysts reported that within days, 30% had already been laundered beyond traceable recovery. The FBI has added Lazarus Group operatives to its most wanted list. Indictments have been issued. Extradition requests have been filed. None of it matters because the operatives are in North Korea, or China, or Russia. In jurisdictions that will not extradite them, will not freeze their assets, and in some cases are actively facilitating their operations. The United Nations panel of experts released a report in 2023 concluding that North Korea used cryptocurrency theft to fund approximately 40% of its weapons of mass destruction development, including the intercontinental ballistic missile tests that have dramatically increased the regime's nuclear reach since 2017. That is not a coincidence. The timeline of the Lazarus Group's escalating cryptocurrency operations maps almost exactly onto North Korea's accelerating ballistic missile program. The international community built a sanctions architecture specifically designed to prevent North Korea from acquiring the technology and funding needed to build nuclear-capable ICBMs. The Lazarus Group built an operation that roots around that architecture entirely, converting stolen digital assets into missile tests in a chain of transactions that no sanctions regime was designed to address. So what does this tell us? The Superdollar program required physical infrastructure, printing presses, paper mills, distribution networks. It was expensive, slow, and ultimately broken by a security threat that North Korea could not replicate. Cryptocurrency theft requires 6,000 people with laptops, reliable internet, and patience. The barrier to entry is orders of magnitude lower, the yield is orders of magnitude higher. And unlike counterfeit currency, which circulates in the physical world and can eventually be traced, seized, or rendered worthless by a redesign, cryptocurrency, once laundered through enough chains and mixers, becomes effectively impossible to recover. It does not decay. It does not require a courier. It does not need a diplomat with an immune suitcase. It moves at the speed of a blockchain transaction. North Korea has not just found a new revenue stream, they have found a better one. One that scales with the size of the cryptocurrency market, grows more valuable as adoption increases, and becomes harder to stop the more decentralized the financial system becomes. The most powerful sanctions regime in the world cannot stop a North Korean operative sitting in a Shenyang apartment from sending a LinkedIn message to a software engineer in Singapore. And that engineer, if he opens the wrong PDF, will hand over access to hundreds of millions of dollars that will fund the next missile test, one that no amount of financial pressure was ever designed to prevent. So far, nobody has solved that problem.